Finds out. I am Pablo Torre, and today we're going to find out what this sound is. How surprising is it that a new investor would put money in December 2022 who had not already clearly been deeply invested into the company?
So it is beyond shocking.
So I walk in here today intending to surprise Amin and David. Hello, guys. Thanks for being back. And I am going to surprise you. There are folders in front of you. Do not touch them, David. Do not touch them.
You covered them this time.
Yeah, that's
so
what
the
first thing I was going to say is they learned from last time.
We child-proofed them. Meanwhile, I'm surprised because Amin walks in wearing what I thought was a Darius Miles jersey.
It's Malik Sealy, the late, great Malik Sealy. It was laundry day, so I just happened to wear this one.
I do laundry every day.
As we defend our journalistic credibility, I'm dealing with Amin wearing Malik Sealy as a tribute, a justified tribute, and David is doing peanuts. Stop looking at the thing. Take off your little glasses, please.
Well, now that I know how this works...
I know, you're trying to sneak a peek. You're trying to sneak a peek by moving aside the peanuts in a story about whether people are doing anything here for peanuts.
28 million worth of peanuts.
28 million
That's a lot of peanuts.
This will require a tiny bit of patience before we open the folders, okay? You don't know what I'm about to show you, which is my favorite part about all of this, but I do need to catch everybody very quickly up to speed.
On Wednesday, podcaster Pablo Torre published a report that the Clippers circumvented the NBA salary cap because Kawhi Leonard had a no-show contract with a company that Clippers owner Steve Ballmer was an investor in. Steve, thanks for joining us to discuss all of this.
I really appreciate you giving me a chance. I look forward to it. Up front, I want to say one thing very clearly. We, the Clippers, have abided by the salary cap circumvention rules because that's the right thing to do.
This was last Thursday. This was Los Angeles Clippers owner Steve Ballmer, the richest owner in all of sports, doing something that I find more amusing and more rewarding in a sense than anything else I've achieved in my life, which is...
wow. You have a child.
Violet earmuffs. We made one of the 10 richest people in the world fly to Bristol, Connecticut. That says a lot, I would say, about what the level of urgency is from inside the facility whose name you're wearing on your chest.
It's funny because you kind of Babe Ruth called your shot. You tweeted, I wonder how long before he has his sit-down interview. And it happened within hours, I think, of your tweet.
Yeah. Something else that happened, it just seemed like Steve wasn't a big fan of our work here.
We did things by the book, and I don't know what those deals should look like, nor do I know what this one looked like specifically.
So why do you think they gave him that much money?
Let me just repeat, I don't know how much money they gave him.
Well, in the court documents and in Pablo's podcast, they report it was 28 million.
Pablo's podcast, I don't know anything about the court documents on this. I haven't seen them and I don't know. I'm not trying to be, I don't know. I really don't know.
I love the body language. So notice the way he was sitting. If you're the 7th richest person in the world, I think you can sit back and cross your legs. He was in the attack position.
He was as if he was in a gamer chair playing 2K.
His third quarter now. I gotta get serious.
Very skilled 13-year-old. But he's also responding in a real way, to what's been happening, what's been talked about, back-channeled around the league. And you're a former front office executive. You're a guy who talks to people. How would you characterize what the response has been?
Everyone's been some version of, this is pretty bad. Even the ones who say, this happens everywhere. Everyone acknowledges it never happens to this magnitude. When you're talking about the amount of money and the lack of any perceivable deliverable of any sort from Kawhi Leonard, that just doesn't happen. That part doesn't happen. Are there deals with team sponsors that are very lucrative and may include the language say, hey, if he gets traded or if he doesn't play here anymore, that ends the deal? Sure, but they all have some sort of deliverable that is tangible, that people can see that we're getting value out of this. They're not just giving money away out of the kindness of their heart.
And are any of them $7 million per year?
this deal was $7 million a year, to David's point, multiples bigger than just standard normal rates. That this was bigger actually than his New Balance deal, his actual sneaker contract, which is kind of, I think, sufficiently eye-opening. I should also mention, though, that after this episode dropped, I confirmed something that the Boston Sports Journal reported, which makes the number more eye-opening by a kind of mind-blowing amount. So what was reported, what I have now confirmed, is that Aspiration granted Kawhi Leonard $20 million in stock in addition. This time, it was from Aspiration co-founder Joe Sandberg and Aspiration Growth Opportunities Partners, which is Sandberg's related venture capital fund. It's called AGO Partners. And I say all of that to say, David, that it brings us to this week. It brings us to the fact that very conveniently, for our purposes, the NBA's Board of Governors, the owners, just finished their regularly scheduled meeting on Wednesday here in New York City at the St. Regis Hotel. And for people who don't know what the hell the Board of Governors meetings are, what are they?
It's when you get the 30 control people in a room and you get updates on the season is starting soon and here's what we're doing. Here's the plan. You may show a little hype up video congratulating the last champions, getting ready for the next season. And there's also updates on any outstanding legal issues. They will update legal cases that are going on so the owners get an idea, and they're set way in advance. This didn't come up as a result of your show. This is set in advance.
So I just got a sidebar here to acknowledge that David Sampson is right. We did not cause the Board of Governors to assemble this week. But what multiple sources did tell me is that the reporting on Pablo Torre finds out was the palpable subtext for the awkwardness and tension around an extremely conspicuous decision that Commissioner Adam Silver decided to make, which was to not discuss the investigation into Steve Ballmer out loud in front of the room of owners at any point. Which is even more amusing when you also realize that Steve Ballmer also serves on the NBA's audit committee, by the way, in which his responsibility is to focus on financial transparency and communication. The silence in that big room pushed multiple irritated owners, I am told, into a series of private side chats over drinks, between sessions, at the luncheon, at the St. Regis afterwards, about Kawhi's $28 million no-show contract and his $20 million in stocks, all of that adding up to $48 million in total value, and the $50 million that Steve Ballmer had personally invested into Aspiration, a company that Adam Silver said he had never heard of before, which set the stage for the commissioner's public press conference on Wednesday afternoon.
I mean, the amount of attention that this has commanded, certainly no one out there is saying, oh, this is just business as usual in the NBA. What's the big deal? This is what teams do when they want to sign players. People, in fact, the suggestion is this is highly aberrant behavior, and which is why in response to a podcast and some additional media reports, we brought in the big guns on the investigation.
And so I guess I should just say here that, yes, I personally am most biased in terms of I think this whole thing seems pretty cut and dry. And it's not just because I've talked to multiple NBA owners who effectively have told me the same thing, that the facts seem clear, but it's also because what it takes to prove cap circumvention, salary cap circumvention in the collective bargaining agreement, which has been characterized by Commissioner Adam Silver as a cardinal sin in the league, that also, according to the language, seems cut and dry in terms of what is useful for the league to consider. And so I just want to quote Article 13, Section 2 of the collective bargaining agreement with the NBA and its players under the heading, quote, no unauthorized agreements. It says, a violation may be proven by direct or circumstantial evidence, including but not limited to evidence that a player contract or any term or provision thereof cannot rationally be explained. End quote. I had forgotten the last part, the cannot rationally be explained clause, but I mean.
Well, that's what the investigation's for.
David, what does that mean legally? Cannot rationally, and I think we understand what that means, but in a legal sense, how do you prove?
Nothing. It's completely wishy-washy.
Right.
There is no legal threshold. Remember, we are not in a court of law.
The burden is on the league if we're going to discipline a team, an owner, a player, or in any of the constituent members of the league. I think, as with any process that requires, a fundamental sense of fairness, the burden should be on the party that is, in essence, bringing those charges. I was only quasi-joking with someone earlier that, when people talk about a smoking gun, that's obviously circumstantial. It means the gun is still smoking. It must have recently fired. I'd say in the case of the league, we and our investigators look at the totality of the evidence.
This is not criminal. This is not even civil. This is a violation of a collective bargaining agreement. And what it actually means is that Wachtell Lipton will interview people with the Clippers.
The law firm that the NBA hired.
To do this investigation. It won't take a day. It won't take a week. It won't take a month. It'll take much longer. As you know, when you are the accused, the burden is on the accuser.
We're
not the accused.
We're in podcast court now.
We are.
Dun, 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 dun. This is a defendant. Steve Ballmer.
In the podcast justice system.
It is quite something to be in podcast court, because there's a word for it that we used to use. It's the court of public opinion.
Yes.
And the irony is the court of public opinion has no rules of evidence.
Right.
It has no judge.
The irony is that the court of public opinion is currently strewn with your peanuts. So I should say that Steve Ballmer, here for the historical review, was punished by the NBA in 2015 for attempting to circumvent the cap with DeAndre Jordan, who was a fraction of the player that Kawhi Leonard is in terms of the attention he received. Steve Ballmer's team and Uncle Dennis then got investigated for complaints about cap circumvention for Kawhi in 2019. The league reportedly found no evidence there that requests from Uncle Dennis for these secret sweeteners, ranging from partial ownership to guaranteed sponsorship money, were actually granted by the Clippers.
Right.
So Uncle Dennis, for the uninitiated, is Dennis Robertson. Uncle Dennis Robertson still has not responded to any of our requests for comment, just like Kawhi's agent, Mitch Frankel, has not. Although we should all acknowledge that we just read Bruce Arthur's article in Toronto Star that reported that Uncle Dennis has specifically, it turns out, requested two things. First, quote, ownership stakes in outside companies. You may now recall that whole little thing I did about AGO Partners and the $20 million in equity. And second, one of Bruce's sources recalled that Leonard's camp outlined its approach to the deal as, quote, we don't want to do anything, end quote, meaning it was a non-starter for Kawhi to be asked to do anything in exchange for the money that they believed they deserve. And so here we are again. The Clippers are being investigated the third time in 10 years.
But we're in the podcast court.
Yeah.
We are not in the true legal system. So Wachtell Lipton is not all that interested in what happened with DeAndre Jordan. They're not going to spend $1, though they'd love to spend $1 and bill $2 looking into what happened with DeAndre Jordan, but they're not. This is a separate incident that will be looked at in its entirety separately.
Well, that's for their investigation, but ultimately the judge is Judge Silver.
That's what I'm curious
And so
about.
he has knowledge of the recidivism, of the repeat offenses, and he will
Allegedly.
almost certainly take that into account in the same way that Draymond Green gets suspended a little bit longer with every additional outburst because of the pattern of behavior.
Which is all to say that what Steve Ballmer wants everybody to know is much like playing against Draymond Green in a game. This whole thing has been a real kick in the nuts.
Now, should I have sniffed it out? Maybe. I feel embarrassed and kind of silly that I didn't sniff it out, but I didn't. I made the investment. A lot of other smart investors didn't sniff it out either. It's also true I've made a bunch of bad business deals and investments in my life, and I've made some good ones. This was fraud and a bad investment, and I'm embarrassed by that.
The thing I keep thinking here, as David is chewing on more peanuts, is that two things can actually be done at once. You can podcast and eat peanuts. Steve Ballmer could have been misled by Aspiration's master of deception, while also trusting Aspiration to help his Los Angeles Clippers help Uncle Dennis deceive the NBA. That, if anything, is the view I bring to what we're about to do here today.
Okay.
So
I don't want to say a word because it will only delay what we're supposed to be doing here.
Okay.
Everybody's caught up.
All right.
We're in the present tense. And at this point, David, get your hand off the folder for one last time because we need to go back in time.
Oh,
okay?
Here we go.
We're going back in time to a critical moment in Steve Ballmer's relationship with Kawhi Leonard and Aspiration that I have not yet discussed with you guys. And I did not appreciate it myself until it hit me, kind of like an apple falling from a tree, as it were. And you're going to get hit with it too after the break.
Oh, come on.
It's like a game show.
The month is December. The year is 2022. So you may recall that Kawhi Leonard is back from his torn ACL. He's now tearing up the Boston Celtics in December of 22. I just need to establish that you may recall that in the last episode we did, I convinced an anonymous source in Aspiration's finance department to go on tape. There was a condition that we use what?
Voice modulation.
Which I granted because of the ongoing parallel investigations by the DOJ and the FBI and the SEC and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, otherwise known as the CFTC, and I want to respect just the sensitivity of the fact that this is a giant national scandal involving one of the richest people on the planet. All of which is to say that for this episode, what we're about to do here involves the product of the vetting and fact-checking and persuading that I spent time doing with another source, who I convinced to separately talk to me about December 2022. And they agreed to the same conditions.
I was a very senior executive in finance. I was also painfully aware of the fact that the contract between Kawhi and Aspiration was to circumvent the salary cap. I too brought that up with some of the more senior executives at the firm who were also aware of this fact. And much like many of the very senior executives at Aspiration, I had to spend a lot of time having conversations with some federal agencies about some of what was happening inside of Aspiration.
And I also just got to say thank you to you, original source number one, because when you came on the show the first time, no one had any idea what we were doing. Now you've had the experience of listening to other people listen to your voice modulated self. And could you clarify whether you have also been interviewed by federal agencies in the course of their investigation into Aspiration?
Yes, I have.
So what was December 2022 like inside of Aspiration as you personally experienced it?
A show. December 2022, the company had virtually no income, no pipeline of clients, was really looking like it wasn't going to be able to make payroll. The ship was sinking. It was just a matter of how long we could hold on. And we ended up doing 2 rounds of layoffs. The first round was in the first week of December, where a bunch of very high-level executives got laid off. The president, the general counsel, some C-suite. And then the second round of layoffs, which was in the second week of December, was almost 20% of the entire staff. So about 100 people were laid off. I mean, to say it was bleak is almost an understatement. And I asked a lawyer, given the scenario of the company and what I'm seeing on a daily basis and the literal lack of cash in the company, what do I need to do to protect myself? I didn't want to have exposure if these numbers, as I had and as a lot of other executives I was speaking to had suspected, were not 100% accurate. I literally did retain a law firm, and I was sending emails to other people in the C-suite letting them know that unless I saw certain things on paper, I was unable to proceed with bringing in these investors.
The last sentence is what's interesting to me. They're out trying to find money. So when you're a company and your revenues are being outgunned by your expenses, you've got 2 choices. 1, you can lower your expenses, or 2, you can increase your revenues. In the absence of either of those, you got to go 3, and that's going to the capital markets. You can take money off a credit card. That's the crudest way to do it. You can borrow money at those usurious interest rates, or you can go to a bank and try to get a line of credit. You can get a bridge loan from a bank, which is you borrow money to make payroll until your next revenue payment comes. and then you pay that bridge loan back. You can get long-term financing from a bank, sometimes a bank of ill repute, and it just depends what interest rate you pay. So you have to go through all of those options, which I assume Aspiration did.
So they badly needed money. The people that we talked to, the one news source number 2, is saying that they didn't feel comfortable asking others for money given what they were learning about the company behind the scenes. These are the people, by the way, who cooperated with the federal agencies. Just give people a sense of like who's talking to me. This company, to summarize what our 2 sources now have told us on tape, December 2022 was f***ed. So, for instance, here's another thing that happened. In October of 2022, right? This is by Q4 of 2022, the week before the NBA season started. There was a Bloomberg headline out in public that everybody could see about how Andre Cherny, Aspiration's co-founder, CEO, the guy who had signed and executed Kawhi's secret no-show endorsement deal right next to Kawhi's signature, had resigned from the company. But now, briefly, imagine you're the Clippers. Imagine you're the team that Amin is wearing on his chest in December 22. In September of 21, you will recall vividly, Steve Ballmer had announced Aspiration as the thing on their chest, their jersey patch sponsor, right? The first founding partner of the Intuit Dome. Aspiration agreed to pay, do you remember? More than $300 million to the Clippers in sponsorship money over 23 years. Given what you now heard about December 22, spoiler alert, that didn't exist. What was clear, though, is that inside of Aspiration, according to my 7 sources, as well as Aspiration's internal cash forecast for sponsorship payments, which is a spreadsheet I obtained that you, David, now get to review in your mystery folder there. You can get it.
Now?
Yes.
You have the cash flow of Aspiration?
It's the cash forecast for sponsorship payments. Don't read it out loud yet. So the smoking gun question we're all contemplating. It's the thing that I think I have uncovered that we're about to learn about. I think it's what the NBA just hired a very high-powered law firm to search for. Because by the end of 2022, one of the company's absolute top priorities, despite the total financial show enveloping this company, was simple. Hey, KL2 Aspire LLC. David, what is it marked there on the cash forecast that Aspiration was internally using to make its sponsorship payments?
It is marked critical.
Yeah. Because in Kawhi Leonard's 4-year secret endorsement deal with this fraudulent company, which is now on the express train to bankruptcy, Kawhi's $7 million annual salary for doing absolutely nothing needed to be paid quarterly.
Right.
Okay? 4 $1.75 million installments. The first installment, $1.75 million, due in June of 22. The second, $1.75 million installment, due in September. The third, $1.75 million installment, due in December. But Aspiration had a problem. What do you think the problem was about making those payments?
They don't have any cash.
According to this Green Bank's Silicon Valley Bank statements, which I have acquired and confirmed and have in the folder in front of you, when does Aspiration send that first wire to Kawhi Leonard, and how much is it? It is due in June 22. What do you have in front of you there?
July 6, 2022. Wire out to KL2 Aspire LLC, $1.75 million.
So the first payment, David, is late of this critical priority deal. Doesn't arrive until July 2022. Not encouraging in terms of the launching of this business relationship. Likewise, your folders will include Aspiration's September and October bank statements for your review. You may now look at that. This is when the next $1.75 million is due to be wired. And spoiler alert,
There is no transaction involving KL2 Aspire LLC.
I'm gonna do you a favor and tell you that I didn't see that either on that statement you have in your hand. Look, the lateness of these payments, right? So September was supposed to be the second payment. There was nothing there. October comes and goes. And Kawhi Leonard is now playing NBA basketball for the Los Angeles Clippers and not getting paid by Aspiration. And so now we're in November. So I just ask you guys to imagine now, what do you think Uncle Dennis or anybody in his shoes would be feeling during this time as this contract was not getting paid and was now running late perpetually?
Well, I mean, I'm sure he was very calm and rational and didn't pick up the phone and call them a million times, banging down the door trying to find out where the money is.
Which is all to say that Uncle Dennis was pissed.
So in all fairness to Uncle Dennis, he's not the only one who's calling trying to get paid. There's a huge freeze because there's no money to be spent. So from the finance team's perspective, we feel like we're on the other end of collections calls. People are constantly coming in asking for their money. But between those months when all of this is missing, so September, October, November, and leading up to December, the actual certainty of the company even existing is up for grabs at that point. Are we going to get paid as employees? Why does Uncle Dennis keep calling us? We have such bigger concerns that we're thinking about, which is our own salaries. Are we going to have to go through layoffs? Where is the money going to come from? But lo and behold, Uncle Dennis gets paid.
David Sampson, former president of the Marlins, please tell us when exactly Aspiration finally does wire their months-late second payment to Kawhi Leonard.
December 15th of 2022, $1.75 million.
So this payment was made December 15th, 2022.
Mm-hmm.
When was the 20% of the staff laid off?
The same day.
Oh.
That deflated O.
There was a lot of deflation in December 22, in fact. But the thing I want to answer with you guys here is the deeply underrated question of how Aspiration finally paid Kawhi Leonard his second ever payment on December 15th, 2022. And so, Amin, I want to point you back to the December bank statement, which you have in front of you, from Aspiration's checking account. You may notice something that I noticed as you scan that, because something happened just 9 days before the wire out to Kawhi's KL2 Aspire LLC for $1.75 million on December 15th.
On December 6th of 2022, a wire in from DEA 88 Investments in the amount of $1,999,999.59.
So $1.99 million comes in 9 days before Kawhi Leonard is scheduled to get paid amid the total collapse of the economic premise of this entire company. But here's what's even stranger. According to our review of Aspiration's cap table and bank statements, there is no evidence that prior to December 6th, 2022, DEA 88 Investments, LP, had ever invested in Aspiration before, which I also confirmed with my sources, which means that DEA 88 Investments, LP, chose to invest that precise amount while this company was basically sinking into the ocean. And so given all of this, I said to myself, I should probably look up the registered agent on file for DEA 88 Investments LP. And it turned out to be a man named Dennis.
Dennis Robertson?
Not Uncle Dennis, a different Dennis.
Another Dennis.
Dennis Wong.
Oh.
Dennis Wong, our different Dennis, is a fascinating character. Different Dennis, the guy who paid $1.99 million to Aspiration 9 days before Aspiration paid $1.75 million to Kawhi Leonard on the same day Aspiration laid off 20% of its staff, is this Dennis. Not Uncle Dennis, but the Dennis seen breaking ground on Intuit Dome in 2021 in a COVID mask off to the side of Steve Ballmer in this video, which we played in episode 1, no less than 5 feet from Kawhi Leonard. He, in fact, is the Dennis in this other video we have, who is literally in the shadow of Kawhi Leonard and Steve Ballmer in hard hats at the Intuit Dome construction site. There it is.
He's got a jersey?
He's got a jersey and a hard hat with his name on it.
Oh, my God.
He, in fact, is the Dennis you can find sitting courtside right next to Steve Ballmer, as in this photograph.
Oh, man.
Dennis J. Wong, our different Dennis, is the vice chairman of the Los Angeles Clippers.
Oh, come on, man.
He is the one and only limited partner, in fact, of the team. This has not been reported previously, but Steve Ballmer, the richest owner in all of sports, by far, has a very strange arrangement with his ownership group. Because the ownership group is Steve Ballmer owning 99%.
Right.
And Dennis J. Wong owning 1%. And that's it.
And that's current.
That is today. Dennis J. Wong is the alternate governor of the Los Angeles Clippers. He is the guy that Steve Ballmer empowers to attend the Board of Governors meeting when Steve Ballmer can't make it.
Can I just repeat it in a way that uses my brain the way it's Rolodexing at the moment? Are you saying that the 1% limited partner of the Los Angeles Clippers, who is the vice chairman of the Clippers, made an independent decision to invest in aspiration for this first time in his own name or his own entity's name, 9 days before Kawhi Leonard got paid when no one else was getting paid?
I am saying that is exactly what happened. And I am also saying that you should probably know that Dennis J. Wong was also Steve Ballmer's college roommate at Harvard in 1975.
These are the things that I'm kicking around in my head. I got my Clipper jersey on. I'm trying to think about this in the most innocent way and say, well, maybe the Clippers, and by extension Dennis Wong, didn't know that aspiration was headed to the shitter. And so he's like, hey, Steve, what's the name of that company you invested in? $50 million? Like, oh, aspiration. I love them. Cool. I think I'm going to finally get off my keister and go ahead and put in a little quiche on it. 2 million sounds about right.
There is no way that Dennis Wong was not aware of the existing relationship that Steve had with aspiration.
Well, it's not that. Was he aware of the existing financial dire straits that the company was in?
I don't think it mattered to him. If he had been asked if he needed to put in the $2 million to get it to Kawhi, he didn't do it with the expectation
David,
he's get his money back.
I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt here.
We reached out to Dennis Wong via email, by a phone number linked to him in a records database. Also to the Clippers with interview requests, detailed list of questions. As we do here at Pablo Torre Finds Out, we outline our reporting. And Wong did not respond before our deadline. But the Clippers wrote us a new statement. Quote, the details of our relationship with Aspiration are under NBA investigation, but it is clear the company was a house of cards that defrauded Steve and many others. We look forward to sharing the facts with the league and providing them with all the information they need. End quote. Now, when we responded to that statement with follow-up questions about Wong's investment, the Clippers didn't respond. I mean, I wanna validate your attempt here.
Right.
And I want to acknowledge something, which is that if you do think that maybe Dennis Wong was blind to the utter mess unfolding inside of Aspiration at the time.
Right.
A useful detail to know is that his daughter just happened to be an employee at Aspiration.
Jesus Christ.
Dennis Wong's daughter?
According to her LinkedIn bio, which reads Project Manager, Operations, and Strategy, which means that through his college roommate and partner, Steve Ballmer, who had invested $50 million of his own money into Aspiration, and through Aspiration's deal that was collapsing with the team Dennis co-owns, the only limited partner of the team, the Clippers, and also through his own daughter, who was witnessing the sinking of this ship firsthand, who my sources all knew as a colleague. He had several very informed ways to know quite a bit about what company he was sinking $2 million into right as Kawhi Leonard needed to be paid $1.75.
It's almost like the opposite of insider trading. Right? You had the scoop
idiot
to
trading.
not put money in.
Yes.
Unless you weren't
Allegedly.
investing in this to make money. You were investing in this for a different reason.
And I should also clarify that, let's call him Grandpa Dennis. Grandpa Dennis specializes in real estate. He's a brilliant and wealthy investor. And he's a noted philanthropist, including to one conservative think tank. The guy knows his way around a dollar. And around the NBA, what Dennis J. Wong is most known for, actually, is helping build the building that his old roommate cares about more than any other.
Damn, I'm fired up! I have to say, I'm a little anxious tonight. I love what we built, but I want all of you to love what we built. But my partner, Dennis Wong, sitting here in the front row, Dennis in the real estate business. And he said, come on, we'd known each other since 1975. Come on, we can do this, Ballmer, let's go. And I said, okay, we need our own house.
I just want to acknowledge what we've established here in a simpler way, which is that the only other owner of the team that is denying that this was cap circumvention invested almost exactly the amount of money needed to finally pay off Kawhi Leonard, having never invested in this company, which was in December 22, as you've exhaustively conveyed, going into this year. His college roommate is Steve Ballmer, who put in 50. His daughter is an employee, as well as the basic fact that, I don't know, maybe he just had a sense that $2 million into a company that had previously raised over 300 was a weird thing, as my first source did want to underscore.
There's multiple things that are conspicuous. One, we're broke. We're broke. So to invest in a broke company is beyond me. Really don't understand it, but I must not be a very sophisticated investor. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is the amount that's being invested. That's such a nominal amount if we're talking pure investment, especially in a late stage startup that's in the process of a SPAC or on the outside date of a SPAC or going to SPAC at some point and has already raised in a year earlier $300 million. What does $2 million buy you?
But I did want to know what my second source knew at the time about the different Dennis in question.
I knew the name Dennis Wong because I got 2 texts from this very senior executive at the firm regarding Dennis Wong.
So inside of Aspiration, Dennis Wong's investment was identified as an investment with the Clippers clearly attached as part of the identification.
Yeah, and I do have another text as well. This is from November 13th, 2022. And it says, Wong is Ballmer partner.
How surprising is it that a new investor would put money in December 2022 who had not already clearly been deeply invested into the company?
So it is beyond shocking. And I will tell you, I knew that the board, which is Ibrahim al-Husseini, who's been indicted, and Joe Sandberg, who's been indicted, I knew that they had put money in December to make payroll and make rent and all that material. It is not a rational investment that someone would make. So it is very shocking to me that $2 million was made as an investment by Dennis Wong, who in my text is identified as the Clippers, Steve Ballmer's partner, a week before $1.75 million was paid to Kawhi.
Okay, so this is where I just gotta jump in here to point to yet another document that Pablo Torre finds out has obtained. Because this document is the stock purchase agreement dated December 9th, 2022, made by DEA 88 Investments, LP, and signed by its president, Dennis Wong, ultimately giving the Clippers vice chairman and alternate governor and only minority owner of the team, not to mention Steve Ballmer's college roommate, 0.072% of an eventually bankrupt company. But the big reason I wanted to mention this here is because this contract also very clearly discloses some very important, and for any potential investor or attorney, very alarming facts about Aspiration at this moment in time. For instance, quote, "The company is in default," end quote. Furthermore, quote, "KPMG resigned as the company's independent auditor," end quote. Also, Aspiration, the company in question, is facing significant litigation for millions of dollars, as described here. Not to mention inquiries from government agencies, including FINRA and the SEC. Now, notably, and in corroboration of our second tape source who had told me this previously above, the only other two investors listed in this document who decided to invest alongside Dennis Wong and his $1.99 million in December 2022, as all of this is happening, after being presented with these same alarming disclosures in writing, are Aspiration co-founder Joe Sandberg and Aspiration board member Ibrahim Al-Husseini, the two individuals who have pled guilty to wire fraud this year in federal court.
What's interesting to me is that when you put money into a startup or into any company, you are told, here is the sources of funds, here's the uses of funds. And you put in $2 million into a company, hey, what are you using it for? Are you paying down debt? Are you using it for payroll? Are you using it for research and development? Are you going to try to cure cancer? What do we got here? It would seem to me that Dennis Wong would not be shocked to hear that his money was being used to pay Kawhi. But it would be interesting to find out, in my head, is did he think that he was putting in money to save the earth? That this was $2 million that was required to keep it going?
That's the part that I'm trying to get at I'm giving you guys the maximum benefit of the doubt. Dennis Wong, who has a daughter that works for the company, I have to assume, even if the daughter was not in the finance department, she was a project manager, she would still be aware of the general tension in a company. I've worked at places where there was that tension.
President got fired, CEO turnover, general counsel got fired.
She may be doing her job. She may not be in the office.
everyone that we were looking to have today. I think that the big discussion from the implementation side of the house is looking for an update related to the credit card detail. I saw a few emails going back and forth, so just wanted to check back in on that. Bruce, I see that you're able to hop on the phone today.
We have a call with PNC this afternoon at 1, so I apologize. Timing just worked out and scheduled for this. Like, one thing I can tell you is that we do believe we have an updated image index file correcting a problem we were having. That was preventing, my understanding with PNC, from then even moving it to production, which thereby prevented the Barra from coming in and getting moved to production for the self-pay details. So I am really, really hopeful that the self-pay details will be back in progress again. And the image file integration is already in production, so as long as PNC starts delivering the files, I think we're in good shape. But like I said, I'd be nervous speaking too much until I talk to PNC, because I've not kept a lot of these people on this call, but the holdup, I'm not trying to be a pain here, but the holdup has been getting the data and the files from PNC. And we still have integration work to do to make sure the files are posted and then sent to Kodiak. So it's a twofold integration. We grab the files, we post them to a source data internally in our system, and then the data gets shipped in a second integration over to Kodiak, both the credit card and the self-pay lockboxes. And so I'm very, very hopeful that we'll be able to move forward on those. And that's where that 4 to 6 week window comes into play. I've done the mapping and a lot of work with the data that was already sent by Kodiak, looking at the test files or sample files. Well, we still have to get everything built out and tested and validated, and that's what that 4 to 6 week window is. I mean, I'm hoping we can shorten it, but that's typically our turnaround for everything that I'm getting at. And now my understanding all along is that these two alone weren't stopping the go live of the auto rec. It obviously will make more reconciliation items, but my understanding all along has been, so someone needs to tell me, because we do have an awful lot going on internally and we only have 3 finance. So anyway.
Everything that you're saying is completely correct, Bruce. So you've already done the training related to the PAI data that is loading into the tool. So we do have some matching happening right now, which I'll have Eric speak to if there's any questions later that were in process. On the other side of the house, the services team with the data that is loading in, and then you're exactly correct. Once we get this source data ready to go from the bank, we'll be able to increase the number of matches that are happening in the tool, and we'll be able to look at the lockbox and credit card activity in auto rec as well. And then one clarifying question. So PNC was able to make the updates to the source data, and then it's 4 to 6 weeks after PNC is done for that development to happen, right?
It's 4 to 6 weeks internally here for the 2 integrations for each of those respectives to be built, tested, and everything. So one little bit of a jump that we had in the 4 to 6 weeks is we've already been working on the mapping based on the file delivery. So a little bit of the integration work is started, but